Hello, welcome back to the Jeevers Golf Channel. My name is Hans Jeevers. I'm a fantasy golf contributor for Fansided.com and progolfnow.com. This week, the PGA Tour shifts to Ohio, this great state of Ohio. This week, we're going to have the inaugural event, the Workday Charity Open. This tournament was put on the schedule ahead of the Memorial Tournament, which will be next week. Which is always a staple on the PGA Tour. Mr. Jack Nicklaus has staged the Memorial Tournament every year since 1976 at the Muirfield Village Golf Club. The reason this tournament was created was that the John Deere Classic was canceled this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, so the PGA wanted to have another tournament in this particular slot. So a rather rare event is the fact that this tournament, the Workday Charity Open, will be played on the same golf course as the Memorial Tournament next week. So we're going to have two tournaments back-to-back on the same golf course. You don't see that very often. So this week we have Muirfield Village Golf Club. It is a par 72 that measures about 7,392 yards in length. We have a classical tree-lined golf course. You're going to have undulating green complexes. Second shots is what I would say. Mr. Nicklaus designed this golf course where the first shots aren't as important. We have very, very wide fairways. Mr. Nicklaus wanted to make it where when you got to the fairway, you were going to have to be very, very precise with your irons from the fairway on these smaller undulating green complexes. So that's what you're going to see this week. I would say if you're looking at different angles from strategy, Mr. Nicklaus was always someone that enjoyed fading the golf ball. So these holes really tend to favor a golfer that fades the ball rather than one that draws the ball. So I know these are professional golfers and they all should be able to do fades and draws at will. Well, the reality is that's not necessarily the case. You have some guys that really, really favor one or the other. So I tend to look at those kind of things when I'm trying to get an edge in these contests. So Mr. Nicklaus, again, really like to fade the ball. So that's what you're looking for here. Another thing I would mention is that they're expecting some rain the day before, prior to the tournament, the day before, they're expecting a lot of rain. Possibly could be rain throughout the tournament. So what does that mean from a DFS perspective? Well, what you're going to get there is wet greens, wet fairways, soft conditions, rather than fast, firm conditions. Some golfers prefer to play on wet golf courses. They prefer wet greens compared to fast, dried out greens and fairways. So that's something to look at. Now, I will be the first to say these weather forecasts can change on a dime, so keep that in mind. However, if you're trying to get an edge in DFS golf, these are the kind of things you got to try to look at. The little tiny details. The fade in this particular course, people that love to fade the ball are going to have a little bit more of an advantage. The weather conditions. This week there's no wind expected, but there's going to be times where you're going to have, like Pebble Beach on the water there, you're going to have heavy winds. Some guys just play well in the wind, like Sergio Garcia. These guys from Ireland, they can have the low ball flight, they hit the ball low, and they're fine in the wind. Other guys, they have a very high ball flight, and that's what they prefer, and you're going to struggle in the wind. These are the kind of things you got to look at if you're going to try to win some DFS golf money here. So look at those kind of things. So if you're looking for other Jack Nicklaus designed golf courses for fantasy golf research purposes, we have the Glen Abbey Golf Club, which has hosted the Canadian Open 30 times. Canadian Open is an event that shifts from course to course, so it's not always the same golf course, but Mr. Nicklaus has had Glen Abbey host that tournament, rather prestigious for Canadians, obviously, for 30 years. Then Mr. Nicklaus has the Valhalla Golf Club in Kentucky that has hosted 3 PGA Tour championships and also the 2008 Ryder Cup. The last PGA championship there was in 2014. So if you want to look at some course data players that have performed well on those courses, that's a little thing you could look at as well. I certainly do. So I did take a look at players that have fared well at the Memorial Tournament, which is the only tournament that has had Muirfield Village as a host. And I've noticed certain key player statistics that seem to be highly important this week based on who has had success here in the past. So proximity to hole is really something that popped out. Strokes gained tee to green. All these statistics, if you're not really big into DFS golf, and you're just getting your feet wet with it, you can go on to PGA Tour.com. It has outstanding data, and you can research these type of things on there. So greens and regulation is going to be highly important. Driving accuracy will not be near as important as some other tournaments on the PGA Tour. Very, very wide fairways. I don't expect the rough to be very penal or punitive this week. I think next week, if he can grow it up a little bit in a week and a half, Mr. Nicklaus will try to make it much more difficult next week. So the golf course is a par 72 that measures 7,392 yards, if I didn't already mention that. So let's go to my picks from a DraftKings perspective. So I have two articles out there right now, one from FanDuel, one from a DraftKings perspective, one on progolfnow.com and one on Fansided.com. Now, I can't put a link in the description because YouTube frowns on that. So last week I did, but this week I won't do that. All I can tell you is progolfnow.com and Fansided.com. I'd also say that you can look for me on Twitter at JeeversGolf. That's another way that you can find my content and follow me on there. So for DraftKings, I'm leading my picks off with 28-year-old American Patrick Cantlay. And it's probably not coincidental that Mr. Cantlay won the 2019 Memorial Tournament, which of course was last year, and he was the last PGA Tour professional to win at Muirfield Village Golf Club. However, that's not good enough for me. You're going to have some course form. Some recent form as a golfer. You can't come in here with 5 straight missed cuts, okay? That's not good enough that you won last year. He's playing rather well this year. So Cantlay has played 6 events on the new PGA Tour season. He has 5 top 17 finishes in those 6 events. And he finished 11th in his last competitive golf tournament at the Travelers Championship 2 weeks ago. Cantlay also checks the box for me when it comes to key statistics. Based on the last 8 rounds played on the PGA Tour, Cantlay leads the listed Workday Charity Open field in strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained approach, and strokes gained ball striking. So when I say the Workday Charity Open field, I mean it's all the players that are listed to be in this tournament. Cantlay leads all of those golfers in those specific categories in the PGA Tour as we speak. So he comes in on the slate at $10,600. I think he's well worth it at that price point, and I'm rolling with Patrick Cantlay at $10,600. The next thing I'm going with is Ricky Fowler at $9,000. Now, Ricky has been not necessarily playing the greatest of golf. If you look at his season from a cumulative perspective, it seems like every week is either a miscut or a top 20. However, last week it appeared that he really started to click. He has got a new swing coach, and he's starting to develop a new swing. And when these golfers have swing changes, it takes some time for it to develop and get into competitive tournament golf, where these guys can be on the leaderboard on a Sunday afternoon. And what I noticed was that Ricky was 4th in the field last week at the Rocket Mortgage Classic in greens and regulation. He went on to a 12th place finish. I think that's outstanding based on the way he had been playing a few weeks prior to that. He even had admitted in some interviews prior to this event that he really wanted to make some cuts and start playing much better. I know that seems obvious, but I like motivated professional golfers, not guys that are just out there to, hey, we know Ricky doesn't have a problem with his bank account. I want him to be motivated and he obviously expressed prior to the tournament he wanted to play well, and he did go out and play well. The other thing I like about Ricky is he's got outstanding course form at the Muirfield Village Golf Club. He has 3 consecutive top 14 finishes at the Memorial Tournament, including a second place finish in 2017. So Ricky Fowler will be my second selection. The next guy I like on DraftKings is Joaquin Niemann, young Chilean. He comes in on the slate at $8,400. He likes this type of green surface to putt on, and the bent grass and the Polana, I think he's going to putt pretty well on this particular surface. And Joaquin is an outstanding ball striker, but he gets to certain golf courses and he can't putt, and he'll be the first one to tell you that. And you'll notice if you look at his data, he plays rather well at specific tracks that have specific green surfaces. So he has had 2 consecutive top 27 finishes at Jack's event, the Memorial, including a 6th place result in 2018. I think he's going to play well this week. I would not be surprised if he's in the top 5 this week. Just a few weeks ago, Joaquin played well. He finished 5th at the RBC Heritage. So I like Joaquin Niemann at $8,400. The next guy I like is Kevin Streelman. Mr. Streelman has 2 runner-up finishes on the PGA Tour in 2020, including a 2nd place finish at the Travelers Championship last month. He also finished 4th at the 2019 Memorial Tournament. One thing I should state is, although I'm making some of the reference to the Memorial Tournament with these guys that I'm picking, I think that course conditions here at the Workday are going to be not nearly as difficult as what they will be next week. So these guys fared well at the Memorial when the conditions are a little bit more difficult. They should fare even better at the Workday Charity Open, which will be, the conditions won't be as bad. So Kevin Streelman comes in on the DraftKings slate at $7,800. Now, from a FanDuel perspective, I also have an article out there regarding FanDuel, and I'm leading off my selections from a FanDuel perspective with American Xander Schauffele. Xander Schauffele comes in on the slate at $11,200 on FanDuel, and I think he's getting kind of overlooked this week. All I'm hearing about is on social media and on podcast is Brooks Koepka. Now, don't get me wrong, Brooks Koepka, I understand why he could be the chalk. No disrespect, okay? Brooks Koepka is an outstanding player. Cantlay, of course, is getting a lot of love, which he should. But people just seem to look past Xander often, and I'm not quite sure why. The guy is an outstanding player. Maybe it's because he doesn't have the flashiest of personalities, and he's not making comments that make news. He just does his job and keeps his head down, and I kind of respect that, actually. So he's played some outstanding, consistent, quality golf this year, and he has played 11 tournaments in the new PGA Tour season that dates back to September of last year. In those 11 events, he has 9 top 24 finishes, including a 3rd place result at the Charles Schwab Challenge 3 weeks ago. Xander Schauffele currently ranks 9th in strokes gained approach, 10th in strokes gained tee to green, 4th in greens in regulation, and 7th in scoring average from the PGA Tour at 68.427. So he rarely pops up with a 75 or 78 on the scorecard. And I think he's going to do rather well this week. Xander Schauffele, the 26-year-old American, leads my picks on FanDuel. The next selection on FanDuel I like is Cameron Champ, the long-hitting American. It comes in at $9,600. He currently ranks 1st in strokes gained off the tee on the PGA Tour. He has 2 consecutive top 14 finishes on the PGA Tour, including a 12th place finish last week at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. He's really primed for a victory. He won not that long ago, I believe in September. He won at the Safeway, which was also on the same type of greens that he's going to be putting on this week. He's a Southern California boy, and these greens in Ohio have a tendency to mimic those on the West Coast, and I really think he's going to play well this week. The next guy I like on FanDuel is Victor Hovland, $10,900. He has 4 consecutive top 23 finishes on the PGA Tour, including an 11th place finish at the Travelers Championship 2 weeks ago. Hovland is arguably the best ball striker on the PGA Tour this season. He just can't putt to save his life. He'd probably have 3 wins in a row if he could just putt. Having stated that, he does tend to putt better on these type of green surfaces you're going to see this week. So Victor Hovland, I like him as well. Continuing on FanDuel, I'm going to talk about Mr. Brandon Steele, 37-year-old American. He comes in on the slate on FanDuel at $8,600. He has 3 consecutive He has 3 top 6 finishes on the PGA Tour in 2020, including a 6th place finish at the Travelers Championship 2 weeks ago. Steele has always been an outstanding ball striker. He's got a couple wins on the PGA Tour. His flat stick has been his primary issue through the years. So the thing that popped off the page for me with the data was in his last event at the Travelers, his flat stick was on fire. He was hitting everything. So if he can continue hitting putts like that, combined with his outstanding ball striking, he could be right there. So I like Brandon Steele at $8,600. If you're looking for a sleeper on FanDuel, I'll give you a Henrik Norlander. The Swede comes in on the slate at $8,000. He has 4 top 25 finishes on the PGA Tour this season, including a 9th place result at the Sony Open in January. Lately, he's really been striking the greens very well. Very good ball striker. For a journeyman player, when he gets hot, you got to jump on him at that particular point. Am I saying that he's going to finish top 5? No. Do I think a top 20, top 25 is very possible? Yes, I do. Norlander can be hit or miss, but I think he's on that streak of a few top finishes. So one of the things I liked about Norlander is he tends to be rather accurate with the golf ball, so I think that's a very good thing. Driving accuracy, he currently is 12th on the PGA Tour in driving accuracy, hitting 69.35% of his fairways off the tee. So he's also rather good in GIR as well. I think this course will suit nicely for him. So Henrik Norlander at $8,000. So that's a quick summary of my picks for this week. Remember, my articles and content are out there on Twitter at JeeversGolf. That's me at JeeversGolf. And then progolfnow.com and Fansided.com. That's another avenue of doing it. Again, I can't put it in the description. They don't like that on YouTube. I don't want to get flagged. So we don't want to do that. So I do think that these tournaments that are not near as strong of a field as next week's will be create a little bit of an opportunity for a DFS player. So I like to really jump hard on these events. The casual DFS golf player just is not as familiar with some of these players. So if I could get you to hit the like button, that'd be outstanding. Maybe possibly subscribe, that'd be even better. Also, hey, who do you like this week? Give me some comments. Who do you like? Who's a sleeper you like? Do you think Cameron Champ's gonna be there in the top 10 this week? Let me know what you think. So anyway, I appreciate you listening, and hopefully some of the data I talked about today will help you. Take care, and we'll see you next week for Jack's tournament, the Memorial. Take care.